The light is failing over a dark fjord in Norway, in the deep winter of a year we may call 960, and you are walking the last mile of a long road. Snow squeaks under your boots. Your breath hangs in the air like smoke. The sun barely rose today, and it has already gone, leaving the sky the color of old pewter and the snow the color of ash. But ahead, between the dark pines and the pale shore, a low shape lies half buried in the snow, and from it, through the dusk, comes the one color that matters tonight: firelight. This is a farm, and the farm is mostly one building, the Longhouse. 30 paces long, its timber walls braced against the weather, its back bowed under turf and snow. There is no chimney. Wood smoke seeps from a hole in the ridge and hangs in the still air. There are no windows to speak of, only the seams of light around the door. A dog begins to bark, then thinks better of it and turns the bark into a welcome. In this country, in this season, no honest traveler is turned away. The door opens before you knock. The door is low and thick, built to keep out worse things than cold. You stoop through it, past the small storm porch, and the winter is gone. Warmth folds around you like a blanket, warmth, and the smell of a northern farm in winter. Wood smoke and wool, hay and cattle, fish drying in the rafters, wet leather steaming by the fire. A dozen faces turn in the firelight, curious and unafraid. The farmer rises from his seat. It is as their own verses say, fire is needful for the one who comes in with cold knees. You are given the words that matter: sit, eat, stay, and just like that, the night has taken you in. Down the middle of the hall, in a shallow, stone-lined trench, runs the long fire, not a fireplace, but a road of flame the length of the room. Everything in this house happens along it. It is the kitchen, the lamp, the furnace, and the gathering place. The family's day is arranged around it, the way a village is arranged around a river. It burns birch and pine slowly, tended without thought, the way you tend your own breathing. Whatever else this night brings, someone will make sure that fire sees the morning. Count the household in the firelight. The farmer, the bandy, broad-handed and grey in the beard. His wife, who runs everything under this roof. The ring of iron keys at her belt opens every chest and food store worth locking under this roof, and everyone here knows it. Their children, from a boy nearly grown to a girl asleep, already in someone's lap. Farmhands who work for their keep. And at the edges of the light, the unfree thralls, who do the coldest and heaviest of the work, and whose labor, quietly, holds up much of this world. All of them will sleep tonight under one roof, around one fire. Halfway down the hall, on the north bench, the farmer's seat stands a little prouder than the rest. Between two carved posts, the high seat, the heart of the house's honor. The carvings on the posts are old, serpents braided into serpents, worn smooth by generations of hands. A guest is seated across from it, in the place of respect. That is you. From here, you can see the whole length of the fire, and every face along it. Take the cup you are offered. Tonight, this small wooden nation has made you one of its own. Supper is barley porridge from an iron pot that hangs over the fire on a soot-black chain, thick, hot, and better than it sounds, with a knob of butter melting in the middle. There is flatbread baked on the hearthstone's wind-dried fish that must be beaten soft before eating, sour skyer, and cheese hard enough to mend a wall. To drink, sour whey cut with water, and tonight, because midwinter is close and the brewing is done, ale. Nothing here is fancy. Everything here was fought out of a short summer, and you can taste the care in all of it. Beyond the fire, light is scarce and precious. A few lamps of hollowed soapstone burn fish oil with a wick of moss, each one a small, brave circle of brightness no bigger than a hand. Tallow candles exist, but they are for feasts and funerals, not for a farm on an ordinary night. So the household does what the North has always done. It gathers to the fire and lets the dark have the corners. The night outside is 17 hours long. Nobody here finds that strange. Winter is not an enemy of this life. It is the frame around it. Listen past the fire, and you will hear the other half of the household. Through the wall at the far end of the house, in the byre, stand the animals, cows with their slow breath, sheep pressed together like one gray creature, a goat with opinions. They live under the same roof for the same reason the people do. Warmth is survival, and bodies are warmth. Their heat leaks through the wall and helps to heat the whole. In return, they are fed, through the darkest months, from the haystacks that the whole summer was spent building. On a winter night, a full byre is the sound of safety. Now watch the women's hands, because they are never still. Wool moves through this house every evening of the year, teased, combed, spun on drop spindles that rise and fall like slow tide. Against the wall stands the loom, a tall frame where the threads hang weighted with rings of stone, and cloth grows row by row, evening by evening. This is not a pastime. Cloth is clothing, blankets, trade goods, taxes, and sales. Every sail that ever carried this people across the sea began here, in firelight, in the hands of women, one turning spindle at a time. The men's hands are busy too. A rake has lost 3 teeth, new ones are whittled to fit. A rope is relaid. An axe handle is scraped smooth. The boy is making his mother a comb of antler and pretending he isn't. In a world where nearly everything the household owns was made by the household, an evening is a workshop with stories in it. Nothing is hurried. The work rises and falls with the talk, the way the spindles rise and fall, and the long night, hour by hour, is quietly converted into useful things. Then the old man clears his throat, and the hall goes quiet the way a room does when weather changes. He tells of his grandfather's grandfather, who cleared this farm out of the birchwoods, of a voyage west when the sea stood up like a wall, of a lawsuit over a whale argued for 3 summers. There are no books in this house, there is him. Every name, every bargain, every boundary stone of this valley lives in the memory of people like him, handed down the fire, evening by evening, for as long as anyone can say. The old gods are not far away tonight, they never are. The farmer wears a small hammer of silver at his throat, Thor's sign, good against most of what the dark can hold. There are quiet customs in this house that no one explains and everyone keeps. The first sup of the ale poured aside, a bowl left some nights by the old post, a word said over the byre door. The land itself has its unseen householders, and a wise family stays on good terms with them. It is not fear exactly. It is manners, in a world where the dark is very large and the fire is very small. On a bench by the fire, a board has come out for the king's game. A king and his few defenders, small pieces of amber and dark horn, stand at the center. A larger force rings the edges. The king must break through to the edge of the board or be taken. The farmer plays his neighbor's son and takes his time about it. Around them, unhelpful advice is offered by all ages. Dice rattle in a cup further down the bench. These are the same winter evenings as everywhere on earth, and always have been. Warmth, a game, low laughter, and someone insisting that they nearly won. The children demand riddles and get them. What lives without breaths? A fish, everyone knows that one. What flies without wings? Guesses fly too, most are wrong on purpose. The grown-ups trade harder ones, old ones, riddles with hooks in them, and argue about answers their grandparents already argued about. It is a small thing, wordplay by a fire. But listen, this is a people who will be remembered for 1,000 years for what they could do with words. It starts here on the children's bench. Look up past the rafters hung with fish and tools and last summer's herbs. High in the ridge of the roof is the smoke hole, the house's one eye on the sky. The smoke climbs toward it in a slow gray rope, and through it, when the wind shifts, you can see a handful of stars, sharp, blue-white, impossibly far from this warm little world of wood and wool. Now and then, a flake of snow finds its way down through the opening and dies somewhere above the fire, a small white visitor from the other country outside. The talk keeps circling to the same fixed point. Yule is coming. The longest nights of the year and the greatest feast days of it. The ale for it is already brewed, and the house smells faintly of that promise. Meat has been salted and smoked. The sheep have been counted. Kin will come by sledge from the farms up the fjord. Midwinter here is not merely endured, it is answered. When the dark is at its very deepest, this people sets its biggest fire and its longest table against it, and dares it to do worse. The benches you have been sitting on all evening now show their second purpose. Bedding comes out of chests, sheepskins, woolen blankets thick as turf, furs for the children. The household sleeps where it lived, along both walls, feet to the fire. A sheepskin and a bench near the warmth are found for you without a word. The farmer and his wife have a bed closet by the high seat, a wooden box of a bed with its own small door, the one private room in a house with none. Sleeping alone is for the rich and the unlucky. Here warmth is shared like bread, and the whole house breathes together. The last duty of the day belongs to the fire. The mistress of the house rakes the embers together and buries them under ash, the way you tuck in a child, snug, dark, alive. Under that gray blanket, the fire will hold its heat until morning, when a handful of birch shavings and one long breath will wake it. Letting the fire die outright is more than carelessness. In this month, at this latitude, it borders on sin. Fire in the north is not lit, it is kept, sometimes for generations, one careful evening at a time. The lamps are pinched out one by one, and the whole becomes a cave of ember light. The timbers tick and creak as the frost tightens its grip outside. The great door is barred with its oak beam. Wind noses along the roof, testing, and finds nothing loose. Through the byre wall, a cow shifts her weight. The dog turns 3 times by the banked fire and drops with a sound like a dropped sack. Someone is asleep already. Someone else murmurs half a sentence and is gone. The house has stood through 80 of these winters. It knows exactly what to do with one more night. And now it is midnight, and the world is as quiet as it will ever be. Snow falls without wind, straight down, patient, filling in the day's tracks as though tidying up after guests. The ice on the bay speaks once, a long, low boom rolling from shore to shore, and falls silent again. No road, no light, no other house in sight. Just one long roof under the falling snow, one thread of warmth in a sleeping valley, and the small sounds of 40 breathing creatures, human and otherwise, keeping each other alive by keeping close. If you stepped out now, just for a moment, just to the storm porch, you might see the night's one great extravagance. Light standing in the northern sky. Green, and a green that has never been in any dyer's vat, folding and unfolding like a curtain in a draught no one can feel. The people of this land have seen it many times and understand it no better than you do. They watch it the way you are watching it now, in silence, a little smaller than they were a moment ago. Some things the night does purely to remind you whose house you are really in. Far off beyond the frozen shore, up where the valley narrows, a wolf gives one long note to the night. Inside, the dog's head comes up before the sound has finished. Ears stillness, a long professional listen. The wolf is a mile away and hunting elsewhere. The flock is behind walls, the fire is banked, and the door is fast. The dog closes the matter, sighs like an old man at the end of a long day, and lays his head back down. The wild is exactly where it should be tonight, outside and far, and none of this house's business. No clock ticks in this house, no bell will ring. The winter night is not measured here, it is kept and crossed, and it is the widest thing these people know. 17 hours of dark, night after night, week after week. They cross it the only way it can be crossed, together, warm, fed, storied, and asleep. If the night is a sea, and in this season it truly is, then a longhouse is a ship, decked and provisioned, riding it out with all hands below. Sleep now. The crossing is long, but the ship is sound. Somewhere in the smallest hours, a child surfaces from a dream and forgets where she is. A whimper, the start of a cry, and then a hand, already there, warm on her hair, and a voice that says nothing in particular in the tone that means everything is all right. She is asleep again in 6 breaths. Her mother lies listening a while longer to the snow, to the byre, to the fire under its ash, the whole quiet machinery of the house holding, and then she too lets go of the night. Morning in midwinter is a decision, not a sunrise. Hours before any light, a thrall pulls his cloak on and goes down the hall to the byre with a lamp, and the cattle greet him with steam and impatience. Hay comes down from the loft. The goat complains about everything on principle. At the fire pit, the farmer's wife kneels, opens the ash, and finds last night's embers waiting like coins in a purse. Birch shavings, one long breath flame. The house has a heartbeat again. Above the roof, the smoke starts to climb into a sky still full of stars. The hall wakes the way it slept, around the fire. Blankets are folded back into chests, benches become benches again, and the porridge pot goes onto its chain for the second act of an endless play. Faces are still creased with sleep. The talk is short and practical. The ice, the hay, the state of the sky. Yesterday's guest, you, is fed again without ceremony and without question. In an hour or so, the sun will make its brief, low apology of an appearance. The household does not wait for it. Winter days are short, the living in them starts dark. Then the door opens, and the world comes in, blue, blinding, and utterly clean. Snow to the knee, air like well water, and over the shoulder of the eastern ridge, at last, the sun, low, brief, and golden, laying every shadow flat across the fjord. The day's work is already assigned by habit: wood, water, ice fishing, the endless wool. 5 hours of light, 6 with luck, and the household will spend them the way it spends everything, carefully. You take your leave with bread in your pack and directions in your head. Behind you, the smoke stands straight up from the roof, like a flag flown for the winning side. 1,000 winters have passed since that night. Of the house itself, almost nothing remains. Dark rings in the soil where the great post stood, a scatter of loom weights, a soapstone lamp with soot still in the bowl. But the evenings survived. The stories told down that fire, and 10,000 fires like it, were carried to Iceland and written down at last on vellum, the sagas, and in them, these winters are still going on. When you read them, you are sitting on that bench again, in the firelight, with the snow coming down outside. Few houses in history have kept their nights so well. So slip back one more time into the deep of that night, while the snow is still falling. Let the fire sleep under its ash, and the dog keep his one ear on the valley. Let the spindles rest, the game stand unfinished, the ale keep for Yule. You have crossed one of the longest nights the world offers, from door light to door light, and you are welcome to stay as long as you like. The winter is long. The house is sound. The fire is kept. Sleep well. Good night.